In today's video, we'll be exposing my YouTube analytics and just going over sort of general interest indicators for Bitcoin. Again, things are, more or less slow here. We'll do a slight amount of setup and technical analysis at the end of this video, but I just want to be showing the sort of data that is not available to everyone. In fact, it's available to very few people, which is, of course, my YouTube analytics. So I'm exposing myself right now, but it is what it is. Anyways, this is the full history of my channel, and as you can see, the channel views most specifically have greatly correlated with Bitcoin cycles, where my views make new highs alongside new highs on Bitcoin. You can see as this channel began in 2018, it started picking up steam a lot in terms of view back here in 2019, and that was when Bitcoin went on its first major rally since I began this channel, from about 3,000 all the way up to 14,000 bucks during that summer. It was a very quick move. And then you can see a similar thing over here in 2021. Where was the all-time high views on this channel? It was literally November 28th of 2021. So a few days after the prior all-time high for the prior cycle was put in. And of course, it took a long time to kind of build up there, but I do want to highlight the fact that the major jump in views around here, was pretty deep into the cycle. It really was about 2 or 3 months where these views broke the prior all-time high. And of course, that was when Bitcoin was putting in a major rally from about 30,000 bucks to 69,000 bucks, I think it was. And then of course, you can also notice that during this most current cycle, we've seen a very similar thing yet again, where the views, come down. It's almost like they're getting accumulated. It is on higher lows, so that's good. I'm long my channel, but you can see that views are absolutely nowhere near that prior cycle high. In fact, looking at the current, I guess, average views per day, it got up to, at its highest level in recent times, a similar level to right before that big breakout, in fact, in September of 2021 that I just referenced. So, perhaps that is still a harbinger of things to come. I will talk a little bit more about a correction later, but ultimately, you can see that likely the interest in this asset is, well, it's still relatively low. In fact, if we go over here to Google Trends and measure out Bitcoin search history, we can see that Bitcoin search history over the past 5 years compared to where it's right now is very, very low. It's at a 25, and this is on a 100 scale. So 100 is the highest. That's like crazy interest. Everyone and their mother is talking about Bitcoin and doing the Bitcoin thing. For example, we saw these levels during 2021 a couple times. Once in January/February. Of course, that was when Bitcoin was rallying to its first major high in 65,000 bucks, and then of course later on in the year in November over here. Same sort of deal. And you can even see that on the current cycle, the current run, the highest that the interest even got was, let me just highlight it up, 64, which, is obviously a little bit better than average, or, average being 50. But it's not, we haven't really seen extremes. And I think a lot of people have felt this, that there's just a massive lack of excitement. I mean, for fuck's sake, Bitcoin is trading literally almost at 100,000 bucks price per Bitcoin, and no one seems to give a fuck. Actually, no one seems to give any fucks about it. So I do think that still is, I guess the sort of interpretation that people would like to put on this is that, well, if sentiment is still more or less indifferent, then you don't really expect like a cycle high to be in. I don't think that a cycle high is in. However, there are certainly some concerning things in the background. But for now, I still do look at that as sort of, sort of a positive thing in combination, of course, with all the other things we spoke about on this channel that we won't speak about on today's video. But of course, these things should be working hand in hand, and this would be just another factor that suggests that that's not true. Now, I have gotten some feedback when I've showed this data in the past before, and I want to continue to be transparent about it and just continue to update on it. And the feedback was, or the criticism was, well, Crown, there's a lot more YouTube channels now, and well, that's why you're getting less views. No, their YouTube channels regarding Bitcoin or crypto or whatever the fuck you want to call it have been increasing ever since I began my channel. There was the lowest amount of channels back in 2018. And of course, in 2021, this channel did, I mean, compared to what it did in the prior cycle, very, very well. Despite there being significantly more YouTube channels. And of course, in this current cycle, same sort of thing as well. I don't think that explanation really destroys this sort of interpretation. But again, this is like really fucking far out there data. It is quite unique, I do think. But as always, it's best to look at Bitcoin price action. So let's look at Bitcoin price action right here. And I did want to just follow on, a very short-term thing. So understand that while I am gonna talk about a target here, this is not like the end-all be-all, and it's not like Bitcoin's doomed for forever or anything like that. It's just short-term stuff. I'm actually recording this video in advance the night before because we'll actually be traveling again tomorrow morning, switching cities here, checking out some new places in Florida. But the setup that I want to speak about is a similar one to one that we've spoken about before on this channel, which is a really simple one using the red, yellow, and green moving averages. When the red crosses the yellow, and that would be the 5 exponential cross into the downside of the 21 exponential moving average, there has nearly always been, or at least I can see for the last 5 years that I backtested this on, and of course we can go back further than that as well. But I figured this is good enough for now. It fits all in one screen as well. Every time in the past 5 years that the 5 has crossed the 21, we have seen price action go at minimum to the green moving average, which is the 55 exponential moving average, like minimum. Obviously, in these cases right here, it goes lower. And in many cases, we do see that the move happens nearly on the same red dildo closure as the test as a 55. But in the examples where it doesn't happen, like you see right here, it still becomes essentially a magnet for price action, despite having a bit of a bounce in the interim, but that bounce failing to get above the last sort of major local high, which is very, very important right there. So, great examples right here. Obviously, does bounce up, but comes back down later on, tests it, and then you actually get the same thing over here. To be fair, a few more times, in fact, but that was probably the cleanest one. Same thing over here. Crosses to the downside, you get that test pretty soon after that. To be fair, same shit over here. This one taking a little bit longer. Again, short-term rally in the interim there, but ultimately does find its way a little bit lower. And I think you can probably get the idea by this point, and I don't need to bother you with more of this. So we'll go back to the current iteration, and we can see that did happen back in very early February. I failed to mention this one on this channel during that time. And while Bitcoin might have a short-term bounce here, I would express concern that until Bitcoin does see that test down to the green moving average, that is going to be a corrective target, at least a corrective target that I'm going to continue to bring up on this channel as long as that is in place. And that is currently at 92,625. Obviously, with each and every passing 2-day closure, I'm saying the 2-day time frame, not like 2-day, the 2-day closure, which will actually not happen tomorrow. It'll happen the day after that. Or today, it'll happen the day after that because, well, I'm recording this video in advance, so that'll be Thursday. it certainly will move up, that green moving average, but it is moving up at a snail's pace. For example, I just watched the last closure, which brought it up about $100 from 92,502 to 92,626. So it's not really moving too fast right there. And while I do think Bitcoin, could very easily put in a short-term rally here, as long as it's below that last local high, which is all the way at 105. I do have to be looking at that as a high probability corrective target minimum. I mean, it could also always break down. I don't think that's what's happening, but of course, if it does, it does, and probably looking at price down into the $80,000 territory. But for right now, I think the sort of bullish view on this, or at least the LARP lines, if you want to draw them out right here, the real question is, like, does it test right here on this current move, or does it put in a bounce first? Probably puts in a bounce first. Again, I'm just guessing here. I don't really have a major bias on this exact portion, but after that, really have to be cognizant that it is very, 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 very likely to test this region. Perhaps putting in a higher low there. I think that would be the bullish view. But again, that would imply Bitcoin price action does come down a little bit lower. And also that would obviously be, if we bring this up right here, that'd be right around the 786 Fibonacci retracement. That's a little bit higher than where the green moving average is. So perhaps around the time that Bitcoin does play that move, it'll actually be dragged up to the 786, which is at 93,240 or so. Anywhere around there is fine, really. So that'd be good confluence if and when that does happen. But, just be aware that there's still, in my opinion, absolutely zero rush to get into position here for Bitcoin, at least. And you're probably going to get a better price if you have a little bit of patience here as well. Again, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, just kind of sharing what I'd be thinking and what I'd be doing in these sort of exact same situations. Who knows what the fuck that means for alts? Alts have really taken all opportunities possible to absolutely fucking suicide themselves. They need like an altcoin suicide hotline or some shit like that. But yeah. Again, this is going to be of interest on this channel until that condition is fulfilled. And I think that's a good place for me to leave it off on this video. We'll come back at it fresh on Thursday. Perhaps we see the move by then as well. I mean, that would make things quite easy. But until then, I'd like to wish you the best of best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully in Tampa.